Candace Owens, Narcissist or Something Else. Part 9. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. We now consider the question of philanthropy in relation to Candace Owens. Philanthropy often crops up in relation to those subjects which have been placed under the Tudor scope. Individuals who engage in giving where they are wealthy, possibly acting as an advocate for particular causes, in some instances actually showing up and engaging in the provision of their time, helping on the front line. In some instances, we have individuals that engage in that philanthropy whereby they don't make a big deal about it, that one has to do some digging to find out that they were involved in philanthropy and the extent of it. With others, they herald it and they want the world to know that they are involved in it. Philanthropy, of course, could be driven by emotional empathy, the presence of empathic traits such as compassion and caring in order to want to help other people, and that an individual who finds themselves in a fortunate position by virtue of wealth and fame deems that it's appropriate to utilize those characteristics towards a cause. Individuals such as Christian Bale, see parts passim, has utilized his emotional empathy with regard to the pursuit of philanthropy, which is done in a modest way. Whilst there is coverage of it, it isn't something that he trumpets, and he goes about it in a quiet and reserved fashion. I've often quoted the empathic example of George Michael, who actually didn't want people to know that he engaged in such philanthropic work, and indeed, when he was seen helping out at a soup kitchen by a fellow celebrity, invited that person not to say anything. You then have the narcissist, who use philanthropy as a tool to assert control over public opinion, to enable them to control those individuals, to draw fuel by way of people's praise for their involvement in philanthropy, and potentially to utilize it for the purposes of making more money for themselves by having a particular structure which allows them, for example, to funnel their expenses through a foundation, and also to be the case that they manage a facade in that regard. We have seen numerous narcissists that I have spoken about who utilize philanthropy in this way. Meghan Markle being a clear example of that. Bill and Hillary Clinton, a pair of narcissists that utilize their foundation for the purposes of supposed philanthropy, which is utilized to enable them to pursue the prime aims. And therefore, the presence of philanthropy in itself doesn't mean that the individual is necessarily kind. Moreover, it's also important to remember that the absence of philanthropy doesn't necessarily mean that the individual is cold-hearted and uncaring. It might be that they simply don't form a view that they regard philanthropy as an effective way to utilize their wealth. But let's find out by looking at some of the evidence in relation to Candace Owens. Owens is widely known for her political activism and media presence rather than traditional charitable giving. As of today's date, there exists no substantial, verifiable record of large-scale personal philanthropy in the conventional sense, such as donating millions to established charities, founding hospitals, or endowing university chairs. But as I've just mentioned, just because that's absent doesn't automatically mean that this person is devoid of emotional empathy. Instead, philanthropy can be viewed in an alternative way, and for Owens, it's almost exclusively tied to the political and cultural mission of the Blexit Foundation and related speaking, publishing, and media initiative. These efforts can be seen as philanthropic because they aim to empower Black Americans by encouraging them to leave the Democratic Party and embrace conservative principles of self-reliance, entrepreneurship, and family values. Whilst they might not be regarded as philanthropy in a traditional sense, they could be grouped within it as a consequence of seeking to help people, albeit politically, to empower them. Owens launched the Blexit Black Exit movement in October 2018 at the Young Black Leadership Summit hosted by Turning Point USA. The stated goal was to persuade African Americans to abandon what she called the Democratic plantation and register as independents or Republicans. In 2019, Blexit was formally incorporated as a 501c3 non-profit organisation, the Blexit Foundation, with Owens as founder and public face. Public IRS Form 990 filings, the most recently widely available, are for tax years 2020 to 2022, show that the foundation operates on a modest scale. In the tax year 2020, total revenue was $495,731, total expenses $378,112. Owens took no salary. Notable expenditures were events, travel, and merchandise. In the scheme of many foundations, this is modest and demonstrates that Owens, not only not taking a salary, isn't utilising it as an extensive vehicle for personal expenditure. Naturally, it will support some of her expenditure on events, but contrast that with, for instance, the way that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle utilised their Archwell Foundation. The scale is considerably different with regard to the way that Harry and Meghan utilise it more as a personal vehicle to cover security and expenses, and that their charitable work is almost incidental to the furnishing of their expenses. Here, it's clear with Owens that she is pointedly about the political aspect of this foundation, and that the expenditure, therefore, is legitimately incurred. It's not the other way around, like Harry and Meghan. In 2021, revenue increased to $1.1 million. Expenses were $987,654. Again, Owens took no compensation. And the notable expenditures were back-to-school giveaways, more about that in a moment, and rallies. In 2022, the revenue was $680,000, total expenses $742,000. Owens took no compensation, and notable expenditures were digital advertising and campus tours. The organisation has hosted dozens of Blexit in the Hood backpack giveaways, voter education drives in Georgia and Pennsylvania during the 2020 and 2022 cycles, and campus events at historically black colleges and universities. One of the most visible Blexit activities has been annual back-to-school drives in cities such as Atlanta, Philadelphia, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Typically, Owens and local conservative influencers hand out several hundred backpacks filled with school supplies. In August 2022, for example, Blexit claimed to have distributed over 5,000 backpacks nationwide. These events are funded partly by donor contributions and partly by crowdfunding on platforms such as Give, Send, Go, a Christian alternative to GoFundMe. These are clearly genuinely helpful to the recipient families, albeit on a smaller scale. Between 2020 and 2023, numerous social media posts and some conservative outlets claimed that Owens personally funded college scholarships for black students. Whilst there's no evidence of a formal scholarship endowment having been produced, that this suggests that there has been personal philanthropy utilising her own money. In a 2023 Spaces conversation on X, Owens clarified that Blexit occasionally helped individual students with one-time payments for textbooks or tuition, usually $500 to $2,000, raised through donor earmarks, but no ongoing scholarship fund exists under her name specifically. Owens has repeatedly stated on podcasts, Joe Rogan in 2021, her own Candace show in 2023 to 2024, and the Daily Wire, that she donates a portion of her speaking fees to Blexit or directly to community causes. Exact percentages or dollar amounts have never been publicly audited or disclosed. Given that high-profile conservative speakers routinely command $30,000 to $100,000 per college or corporate appearance, even a modest 10 to 20% redirection on her behalf would represent meaningful philanthropy. Owens and her defenders frequently argue that traditional charity creates dependency, whereas her work, challenging welfare culture, promoting fatherhood, and encouraging black entrepreneurship, is the highest form of philanthropy because it lifts people permanently. Is this grandiosity to suggest that her way is the best way, or is that actually accurate? After all, is it not the case that many charitable enterprises have huge overheads which go on massive salaries for the individuals who hold the positions on the board? And it's often a complaint from many people who might like to give to charities that they feel that their money doesn't actually end up helping the people that it's meant to help, that instead it goes on expensive advertising campaigns, large salaries and significant expenses. And therefore, might it be that Owens' approach is actually of more genuine effectiveness? Could this genuine effectiveness be driven by her own need for self-publicity? Or is it born out of the fact that she actually truly cares about lifting people permanently? Critics suggest that this allows high-earning commentators to brand ordinary political activism as altruism while contributing relatively little from personal wealth. Forbes has estimated Owens' net worth in 2024 at approximately $4 to $6 million, derived primarily from book advances, the Daily Wire salary, which was $200,000 to $300,000 per month during 2022 to 2024, and PragerU speaking income. Owens has launched also an independent YouTube channel and podcast that rapidly surpassed 4 million subscribers by mid-2025. Monetization from that platform, estimated to be $15,000 to $30,000 per day in ad revenue alone, dwarfs Blexit's previous fundraising. As of November this year, the Blexit Foundation website is still active, but has not yet announced new initiatives. It's clear that Candace Owens' philanthropic record is inseparable from her political project. The Blexit Foundation has organised real, if small-scale, community giveaways and voter education efforts, and Owens has consistently declined a salary from the non-profit. Whilst the scale of the philanthropy is not large, it could well be argued that it's actually more effective, as it concentrates on actual action as opposed to the generation of large donations and fundraising whereby the money is swallowed up in significant overheads. And that in actual fact, that whilst Candace Owens might not be viewed as a traditional philanthropist, that her method is actually far more effective. And is this demonstrative of an individual who is keen to ensure that there is effectiveness, because this is born out of a desire whereby she actually cares, so it demonstrates the presence of emotional empathy? Or might it be said that this effectiveness is driven by an innate need for control? Either way, there's evidence in relation to the activity of philanthropic behaviours which are different from the norm, which provide us with suitable indicators that we can look at in the whole. And once again, it's important to look at this evidence, which is obtained from a variety of sources over a sustained period of time. We continue to mount up the evidence and the indicators, and there's more to come. Join me in the next part.